Contention. Critique. Conjecture. Conclusion.
The Huddle with paperplusoffice.co.nz. Shop online anytime. They're open 24/7.
18 to 6, Cameron Slater from Whale Oil and editor of The Truth with us once again. Hello, Cam.
Hey, Larry.
And we have Josie Pagani once again. Hello, Josie.
Hi, guys.
Cameron, the Mighty River Power share float. None of this will satisfy those who oppose the sell-off of SOEs, but I think this will be oversubscribed massively. What do you see in it, Cam?
I'll be buying some. I'm going to go out and make sure that I've got everything required to invest in these shares. I understand the restrictions to put Kiwis at the front of the line are that you have to have a IRD number, a New Zealand passport, and live in New Zealand. And I think that's a good idea. And I think it'll be oversubscribed as well, and I certainly hope that there's a whole lot of KiwiSaver accounts out there that are going to subscribe in large quantities to these shares.
And what do you think, Josie? The great majority will end up in Kiwi ownership. How do you see it?
Well, I think the problem is they're trying to run with the hounds and run with the hares here, because on the one hand, the whole point of this sale, says the government, is to pay off debt. Well, we know that the dividends that we get from these assets is greater than the interest we pay on the debt that we'll pay off. So, in other words, if it was really about paying off debt, well, they should just be trying to get the highest price possible. Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble. So they're also trying to do that. At the same time, they're trying to shore up the local capital market and give mums and dads a go at it. So I don't think you can do both of those things. I think, as you just your interview just before with Lee and Dan, that getting the price right is going to be a hell of a difficult, because if it's too high, you're going to price out the local buyers. If it's too low, it looks like a bargain basement
You make everything
sale.
sound so complicated,
Well,
Josie. I mean, it's actually really easy.
Selling our strategic assets in our electricity companies is complicated, and that's the problem they've got. They've got to try and avoid becoming Contact Energy, which, don't forget, in 1999 was majority government owned. It's now privately owned. And what did they do when the global financial crisis hit? They put prices up by 12% and doubled direct.
All right, okay, Cameron, your turn.
Well, she's conflating old history with a completely different scenario where the government is retaining 51% control. So the sale completely into private hands isn't going to happen. It's not what John Key promised. In fact, what he has delivered is exactly what he fought in an election on and won.
No,
to have that relitigated in any way, shape or form is just ridiculous.
No,
and I'm glad the Maori Council got chucked out 5-0 in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but my point, Cam, was that Contact Energy started off as majority government owned, that's all. But look, another thing I think which is worth considering is the timing of the Rio Tinto issue unresolved to Wai Point. Now that's 15% of our electricity output. So surely that's going to affect the price that we get. Who's going to want to buy it if Rio Tinto might walk out of New Zealand taking 15% of the demand out of New Zealand for electricity?
This is all might type stuff. It's just delaying tactics from people scaremongering over the shares. The bottom line is that people want this. They want a strong share market. They want strong infrastructure-based assets to be able to invest in, and that's what they're going to do. If Rio Tinto left, so what? The taxpayer shouldn't be taking the risk, and what you're saying is that the taxpayer should take the risk, where in actual fact what we should have is these companies privatised. If it was up to me, I'd privatise the whole lot and dump the lot.
We'll come back in just a moment. Cameron Slater and Josie Pagani on The Huddle. It is now 14 to 6.
Larry Williams Drive with the business banking specialists at Westpac.
Cameron Slater and Josie Pagani on The Huddle. Issue 2, let's go through these quickly. Josie, to you. Green Party Justice spokesman David Clendon says the government can no longer ignore the institutional bias against Maori and Pacific Islanders at all stages of our criminal justice system. Clendon says there is a racial bias in arrest rates. I'm not sure what he's suggesting there, that police just ignore anybody who is brown. What do you see?
Oh, this kind of stuff drives me nuts, Larry.
Yeah.
I mean, the UN. If the UN spent more time in terms of human rights trying to get the likes of Gaddafi rather than making him chair of the Human Rights Committee, which is what they did, and less time having a say and thinking they've got a right to have a say on our foreshore and seabed legislation, let alone the makeup of our juries or the number of racial diversity in our police, when we are actually doing all of that. And honestly, I don't know what David Clendon's on about, really, because he says subsequent governments we've all failed at this. Well, actually, we all take it seriously and we all try, and there's a lot of initiatives out there. I mean, honestly,
Cam?
Just silly.
Well, Gaddafi got what was coming to him for his stupidity, but David Clendon really just proves that the Green Taliban are out to lunch. I mean, if he's talking about inequality, let's look at the crimes that are committed against all peoples in New Zealand, predominantly by the people who are incarcerated. I mean, they're the ones that are in jail. And then you flip across to the next step and you take it to the absolute ludicrous extreme if he's talking about equity and equality in prosecution or arrest. We've got more men arrested than women. Surely he should be campaigning now that 50% of all inmates be women. I mean, that's the ridiculousness of his state.
And Josie, Josie, briefly, a teenager on bail when he robbed and beat up an 81-year-old woman, broke her wrist, her hip, disabled her for life. He's been on bail 4 times, reoffended, and a judge has sentenced Darren Fidow to home detention. The judge is Philippa Cunningham. I think society is demanding tougher sentences for this sort of crime. What do you see?
Well, tougher sentences is something that we should debate through the Parliament. But I think what you're saying here is this judge has got it wrong, and how do we hold this judge accountable? Well, exactly. The issue here, it's a difficult one because the independence of our judiciary is something we should protect at all costs, because it means that we don't get influenced by politicians or public opinion even. They have to protect the rule of law. Now, if the law needs to change, we do that.
Righto. So is the answer in Parliament here, Cam, we can't have judges leaving these violent criminals on the streets.
I think we've got to remove discretion from judges. If you commit crime A, you get sentence A. End of story. These liberal panty-waist, crim-hugging judges are simply letting scum back on the streets. In this case, this Fido or whatever his name is, he was on bail for...
Well, he's Fido, he's a mongrel, he's a dog.
He's a mongrel. Yeah. He was on bail 4 separate times. That's 4 panty-waist, liberal, crim-hugging judges have let this guy out, and Cunningham now, instead of sending him to jail, has given him home detention. It's a travesty, and I wish we had a mechanism for removing soft judges. We should be able to sack them.
Cameron Slater and Josie Pagani on the Huddle. Murray Deaker next. It's 8 to 6.